Okay, am I audible? Right. So I have shared this link for attendance 5, attendance of session 5. So you can fill your attendance, and then I will close it by the end of this session. I will close this so that anyone who is actually attending the session will be able to fill this form. And then I am really sorry to inform you that the folder that I had shared with you all had somehow I did not change the edit privilege of that folder. I shared it with all of you, considering that everybody is an responsible academician and they should handle it in consideration to your fellow members. But unfortunately, there were so many unknown files and unwanted material immediately posted on the web folder that I had to delete and remove all the content from there. I had to remove the sharing link and I had to remove everything. And now I'm uploading all the video recordings again. And let's see. So I have.
So we don't have the sir PPT of study sessions, session 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Session 1, 2, 3, I have asked Dr. Tiwari to share it. He is right now, he is actually controller of examination also. So he is busy right now, very busy. He will share it as soon as possible. And for session 4, I had shared it before the session 4 started. But then a lot of different things, unwanted things started coming up on that folder. Now I have shared it again. And yeah, I was trying to share it again, but then somehow it gave me a message that my share limit has reached. So I will not be able to share any more file probably today. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about that. So okay, I'll try to send it in your email if if it is possible, because the file is bit bigger, 7 MB. I'll try to send it in your email. If you can, please access it.
So how long this session is going to be, as it's asking
It's a 1.5 hour session, ma'am. So it will end. It has started 12:30, and it will end at 2.
Right.
Okay. Now audible again. Okay. So we stopped our lecture at this session, is at this slide, and I am continuing from here only. Now, in the first session, I gave you an introduction to artificial neural network. What is a neuron? What are perceptrons? How a perceptron combines together to create a multi-level perceptron (MLP). Okay, and what a neural network is as a whole. Now I will discuss upon the topic that how a neural network learns. So in this slide, as you can see, we have two things which I have not discussed. What is feed forward and what is back propagation? Okay. So feed forward is nothing but a simple concept of saying that the input that has been submitted to the neural network moves in the forward direction. In this diagram, as per this diagram, the forward direction will be direction from left to right, and the input moves from left to right, and output is produced at the output layer, at the output neuron. That output neuron is compared, the output of output neuron is compared with the expected output, and that creates an error. The difference of expected and actual output creates an error, and that error is the term which will help this neural network learn what this neural network wants to learn. And this learning happens through backpropagation. Backpropagation is the mechanism with which neural network learns. Before starting with backpropagation, I would like to discuss. I would like to ask this question: how much do you know gradient descent, or has it been discussed by Tiwari sir?
It's not discussed, sir. Little knowledge, you know.
Yes. Okay. So most of you will have knowledge of gradient descent, and gradient descent is nothing but if you have a curve and you calculate the gradient with respect to a particular variable. Okay, gradient is always it's not a differentiation derivation, it's a gradient. So gradient is always partial derivative. When we say partial derivative, the partial derivative is always taken with respect to a single variable. So in this diagram, as you can see, there on the x-axis you will find beta 1. On an on an y-axis you will find r of beta 1. R is the function. R is the actually error term which calculates the error with respect, and this curve is the curve with respect to single variable beta 1 only, right? It is not with respect to all the variables. It is not with respect to x1, x2, x3, or any other variable. It is with respect to the parameter. Why against parameter? Because parameter values are the values which we are trying to learn. So consider your linear regression function fx equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1, beta 2 x2, beta 3 x3. There could be several beta values. But whenever we calculate gradient, we calculate with respect to single parameter only. So every time you will see this graph and you will have x-axis as one beta value and y-axis as the error function. And that is why it is always two-dimensional curve. And in two-dimensional curve, when we find out the slope will have only two directions. Will have only two possible direction, either upward or downward, and the slope is always perpendicular to the curve at the point of contact. Now, gradient is always pointing towards the maximum ascent. Okay, it tries to get you upwards, maximum ascent. When we calculate gradient, it calculates, it gives you the direction of maximum ascent. But we want to minimize, we want to get towards the minimum value. So what we do, we calculate negative of gradient. When we say negative, it changes the direction of that gradient slope, and then a gradient is a vector entity. So when we take a negative of it, it changes the direction and takes you towards the minimum value. So negative of gradient takes you towards a smaller value. Now every time you have to take a step, and that step size is again a hyperparameter we decide upon what should be the step size. So from the point of contact of this gradient, we have to take a step forward, and this step forward will be in the direction of negative gradient, that is taking towards the minimum value, and it will take you downward. So in mathematics, the gradient is multivariable generalization of derivative. Derivative can be defined on functions of a single variable. However, for functions of several variables, the gradient replaces the derivative. Gradient is a vector valued function as opposed to derivative, which is a scalar valued function. Gradient represents the slope of the tangent of the graph of the function. The gradient points in the direction of greatest rate of increase of the function. Okay, and its magnitude is the slope of the graph in that direction. So remember this point, that gradient always points in the direction of greatest rate of increase. And since we don't want to move in the higher direction towards higher value, because we have to reduce the error, and that graph, this graph that is shown over here is the curve of error, and we want minimum error between expected and generated output. So we want to move towards a minimum value, smaller value.
Sir, how did you get these curves, or which formula you have used, or which equation you have used to find this parabolic curve? Means why it is coming
This
just
is
like
this
this
is the
to the y-axis?
okay. It is the mean squared error. The error that Tiwari sir probably discussed about yesterday, MSE, or the root mean squared error that he would have discussed yesterday. Okay, so this is the error of. Actually, I will tell you. This is the error. Wait. It's actually the root squared error. The error between of difference between all the generated output and the expected output. So I think I missed this slide somewhere.
Actually, my question is that, sir, the behavior of the graph will be fixed for every value or for every model. You are giving the graph like this parabolic. Why it is coming parabolic?
It is
Is there
coming
any
parabolic
equation?
because we are taking the squared error. Squared error means the function will be, it is actually the squared value of difference. We calculate the difference of error, and then that difference is squared, because we don't want to compute the negative value. Output could be bigger, or the expected could be bigger. So when you subtract the expected from the actual output, the value could be negative also, or positive. Negative or positive, it could be anything. So we square it. When we square it, we remove the problem of having negative sign, as well as we get a parabolic function. Okay, so when we get a parabolic function, it will have this curve only.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so all the
Yes.
time the error that we get is squared error, and as soon as we get a squared error, it becomes a parabolic function. And when we becomes a parabolic function, it will show this curve. That is why we discuss this all the time. Whatever type of error you will discuss in neural network literature, all of them will have a parabolic curve only.
Okay, sir.
Right. So the gradient points in the direction of greatest rate of increase. And since we want to go towards a smaller value, we take a negative of gradient, and then this is our target. The steep slope value of D is high when we have when we are very far from the minimum value. We take the step size to be larger, and when we reach towards our goal, then we try to reduce the step size. And overall, if you consider this formula, the formula written at the bottom of the slide, beta dash equal to beta minus alpha del r beta upon del beta. Now this function, I'll explain this function. It is a function of gradient descent in which you see the derivative, partial derivative of r beta computed against beta is the gradient, and the negative term written against it is the negation of the gradient, which takes you towards a smaller value. As I said, negative gradient takes you towards a smaller value and positive gradient takes you towards a higher value. So negative of gradient will take you towards a smaller value. The alpha term is the step size or the learning rate. So in the previous slide, in this slide, in which I have shown that if you are farther from your goal, the step size, the red line that you can observe over here, is larger. But as you reach nearer to your goal, the step size, the red line under this person who is walking, becomes smaller. This is the same way we decrease the value of alpha when the algorithm has started, and as more and more iterations go on, the value of alpha decreases gradually, so that nearer you are to the goal, the step size is smaller, because we don't want our person to skip the final target and keep on skipping, going forward, going back, coming backward, going forward, coming backward all the time. We want it to converge. So a smaller and smaller step size is needed when we reach to nearer to the goal. Now beta dash is the new beta value, and beta is the old beta value. So overall, this equation says that new beta value is generated from the old beta value by updating it with negative of gradient, which is multiplied with the step size. Okay, so new beta value, the new parameter, is obtained after taking gradient of error, negating it, and multiplying it with the step size and updating with the old parameter value. That is how a parameter value is changed. So this parameter value or the weight value is heavily utilized in neural networks, in which every edge has got a weight value, every edge has got a parameter value. So every parameter value needs to be modified, updated according to the error that would be generated at the final output. Now what would happen? We would perform the feed forward of neural network, in which input will be fed at the input layer, and then that input will be propagated in the forward direction so that an output is generated. That output will cause some error because the output is generated output, and we are expecting something because we have a supervised learning environment, we already have a label, or we have a value with which to compare. So when we compare with the expected output, we will get an error. As soon as we have an error, we can calculate the gradient of that error, and that gradient of error will give us this term minus alpha gradient del r upon del beta. The gradient is calculated as with respect to a single beta value, and then that single beta value will be updated as per the gradient term. So gradient term is simply the direction of the steepest ascent, which is negated and then multiplied with the step size. Is this equation clear to everyone? Okay. So right. So I move forward. Now, what is gradient optimization? Gradient descent optimization is we perform this updation of parameter values simultaneously for all parameters. So if we have an equation fx equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2 and so on. So all the beta values, when one beta value is modified, all the beta values will be updated, modified simultaneously, and you will have to perform this gradient updation for all the beta values. So what happens is repeat until convergence. this updation of all beta values where beta j ranges beta j, where j ranges from 0 to 1 in this example, because we have taken only one variable, beta naught plus beta 1 x1. So two parameters we have, beta naught and beta 1, and beta naught is updated as new beta naught is equal to old beta naught minus alpha del r upon del beta naught, and new beta 1 is updated as old beta 1 minus alpha del r upon del beta 1. Now you would say, why every time we are subtracting from the old value? This is a question I normally get from my students. I don't know whether you have the same doubt or not, but I'm again trying to explain. When you see this negative sign, it does not actually represent a subtraction. This negative sign only represents that you are taking a negative gradient. However, it is quite possible that when you take a gradient, okay, when your curve, when your point is over in this direction, at this position, the position at which arrows are drawn when we have positive slope, when you take a negative of this, when you calculate the gradient, the direction will be in the upward direction towards northeast, but when you take a negation, it will point towards southwest. Against this, if you go on the reverse side and you come over here, okay, if you are able to see the mouse pointer, you observe that I am closer to y-axis now on the curve. If I calculate gradient at this point, my gradient, the positive gradient, will point towards northwest. Okay, it will point towards northwest, and it will be a negative value. So when I take negative of it, it will become positive and it will now point towards southeast. Okay, which is again pointing towards, taking you to a smaller error value. Okay, so when you are at this position, the beta will be over here, and negative gradient will take you in this direction towards minus x. Okay, however, if you are in this position, the beta value is smaller and it will take you, the negative of gradient will take you towards positive x direction. So whatever be the case, wherever you are on this curve, if you calculate gradient and take negation of that, the negative gradient will take your beta value towards an optimum value which will minimize the error. An optimum value which will minimize the error.
Sir, where is your beta naught, sir, in the graph? Because we have to update beta naught, beta 1 simultaneously. In the graph, where is beta naught, sir?
This graph is with respect to beta 1. Similarly, there will be another graph which will be with respect to beta naught. So since you are updating this beta value, okay, you are calculating a gradient. So gradient is always with respect to one variable only. That is why this graph cannot have more than one variable. This graph has only one variable, beta 1, because you are calculating this gradient with respect to only one variable. When we take partial differentiation is with respect to single variable. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you observe this one. In this equation, when we have to update beta naught, we take the partial derivative with respect to beta naught. You observe del r upon del beta naught. You notice this thing? And
Yes,
when
sir.
we have to update beta 1, we take the partial derivative with respect to beta 1. So that graph is actually representing equation 2, in which beta 1 is being updated. Similarly, another graph will be generated in which you will have a gradient curve with respect to beta naught. So the gradient curve will have only two axes, x-axis representing your parameter, either beta naught or beta 1 or beta 2 or beta x, and y-axis will represent the error curve. Okay, the gradient of error. So only two axes. There won't be any third axis representing other parameters. That is why all these gradients have to be calculated, and all these parameters have to be updated simultaneously. Had there been more than 2 parameter values like beta 2, beta 3, beta 4, etc., then those many equations need to be created, and those many gradients need to be calculated, and all those 4, 5 uh, parameters need to be updated simultaneously. That is the concept with which all these beta values are updated. And now, how are these beta values related with error? This is the error term. R is the error term. R over here represents risk. So risk is risk, loss, error. All these terms are actually being used in literature. So they are sometimes confusing, but ultimately all of them represent the same thing. The difference between your expected and computed output. So when we have the error value, we can calculate gradient. With respect to gradient, we can update the parameter value. Now this is gradient descent. How gradient descent is actually implemented in neural network backpropagation, that we are going to see now. And at this point, alpha is the learning rate. Alpha starts with a common value. Sometimes it is 1, sometimes it is randomly initialized, and sometimes it is taken as per literature. There are different models, and most of the models start with their own alpha value. But you could start alpha with 1, and then gradually you can change alpha value such that this step size becomes smaller and smaller. In case of linear function, this R, the error term, is modified del R upon del beta and del R upon del beta 1. You see in this, this is the error term which is calculated, y minus fx. Y minus fx is calculated, and here we have not squared it, but error is actually squared, so that we get the mean squared error MSE, and average of all the error is taking. I think while updating this slide for this FDP, I somehow deleted that error slide in which I had explained the error term. I will when I'll reshare the slide, I will put that slide as well, where I have mentioned the MSE thing, in which I have explained what the error would be. Error is always a squared term, so it creates a parabolic function. That was a good question. It actually makes me notice I missed it. Okay. So this is how the yi over here, yi is the term which is expected. Now beta naught minus beta 1 x is the function fx which is calculated by your model. So yi minus fxi is the error term, and similarly over here it is this. So this error term is computed for all the input values, and then average is taken over a number of inputs. So this is a gradient term with respect to beta naught, and this is gradient with respect to beta 1. When you differentiate this, you will find since beta naught has a coefficient of -1, so you multiply with -1. Beta 1 has a coefficient of minus beta 1, has a coefficient of xi, so beta 1 is differentiated, becomes 1, and coefficient is minus xi. So ultimately you have these two equations with which all the time the beta values will be modified. And you see in this equation, what is unknown to you? Beta naught, the old beta naught value is known to you. This beta naught value is known to you. Alpha is pre-decided. If it is the first step, alpha will be 1. N is known to you. Xi and yi is known to you. So all the terms on right hand side is known to you, and those terms compute together to calculate a new value of beta naught. Similarly for beta 1, this beta 1 is known, alpha is known, n is known, beta naught, the old value of beta naught is known. And remember, this beta naught will not be the new value, it will be the old value, because you are simultaneously modifying all of them. And when you are modifying them, beta is assumed not to be updated. It's still taking the old value. The old beta naught value, beta 1, old beta 1 value, xi is known to you, yi is known to you, xi is known to you. Okay. So all the terms on right hand side are known to you, and they compute together this function to calculate a new value of beta 1. So this is how we update all the parameter values through the method of gradient descent, and these beta values are updated continuously. If they are being updated, you understand the function fx equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1 is also being updated. Okay, so when that function is being updated, the linear regressor line that you can imagine is also updating itself. When it's updating itself, you are getting closer and closer to the uh, most optimum value, most approximated value. Fine. So backpropagation algorithm as a whole says feed forward neural network as opposed to recurrent neural networks have no connections that loop. It learns the weights from a multi-layer network. The backpropagation stands for backward propagation of errors. Given a network with a fixed architecture, that is the number of neurons and interconnection of neurons are already fixed, pre-decided before the network starts to learn. It uses gradient descent to minimize the squared error between network output value O and the ground truth, that is Y. We suppose multiple output value K. Okay. The backpropagation algorithm has a challenge to search in all possible weight values for all neurons in the network. So this is the objective that it has, and it is trying to find out the most optimum value for all the parameters. Now, okay, yeah, you can observe over here. This is the error term that I was referring to. Fortunately, I have this thing over here. So it says, for an example E defined by xy, the error on training example E summed over all output neuron in the network is 1 by 2 summation of yk minus ok square. Okay, yk is the output that we are expecting. OK is the output that we are getting out of kth neuron. So it is imagining that there are k neurons and then k outputs are being generated. And this error term is squared and then sum over all the errors k neuron are all the errors of k neurons are added together. Sometimes we take a mean of it. So if it is summed, it should be divided with k also, and then we divide it with 2. I mean, it's halved. Why it is halved we will see, because when we have to differentiate, this 2 will come over here and then 2 and 2 can negate themselves, so we do multiply it with half. So this is the error term which we will refer to from this slide onward, and you can see that this is squared error, sum of all the squared error of k output. Remember, gradient descent iterates through all the training examples one at a time, descending the gradient of the error with respect to this example. So we calculate delta of wij is equal to minus alpha del E upon del wij, where w is the weight associated with an edge starting from I and going to j. Now, we must follow some notation. So in this slide, we observe some notation and then we will move on to the actual calculation of backpropagation algorithm, implementation of backpropagation algorithm. If you're not able to understand any notation, just unmute yourself and tell me. I'll explain each and everything to you. Xij. Xij represents the ith input to neuron J. At this point, I am trying to calculate how this backpropagation algorithm works and how, by utilizing gradient descent, the error term is backpropagated so that all the weight values are modified. Okay. So I'm trying to understand the behavior of neuron J. So I'll consider neuron J as my current neuron. Okay. So neuron J is my current neuron, and if neuron J is my current neuron, I take a neuron, the ith neuron, and mark it as its input as Xij, signifying that an input is coming from ith neuron to the current neuron, that is jth neuron. Wij is similarly the weight associated with the edge, which is representing input from neuron I to the current neuron J. Zj is the legit, okay? The legit, the weighted sum calculated at current neuron, that is neuron J. So weighted sum of inputs for neuron J. Oj is the output computed by neuron J. Output is again the after you apply the activation function on legit, you get the output. So output generated by current neuron, the neuron J that I'm considering right now, is Oj. G is the sigmoid function. Here G is the activation function, but since we are using sigmoid function at this point of time, we call it as G, the sigmoid function. Outputs as a plural, it represents set of neurons in the output layer, and sub J is the list of all those neurons who are immediate successor of my current neuron, that is neuron J. Okay. So you can imagine successors as if I go back and I look at the slide in which I had my first network representation on this slide. On this slide, you imagine the first neuron, first neuron of the hidden layer. So first neuron of hidden layer has 4 inputs. So all of them are x's, x 0, 1, 2, 3. All of them will have weights, so all of them will be represented, the x's will be represented. So suppose I am considering neuron 1 of hidden layer and I call it J equal to 1. Just imagine. So this neuron is, for this neuron J equal to 1, an input has 4 neurons. So first neuron will have, there are 4 inputs. So first input will be from 1 to 1. So I equal to 1 and J equal to 1. So X 1 1. Similarly, W will be W 1 1. And the legit calculated at this neuron will be Z 1 1 representing J. Output of this neuron will be Z 1 representing the first neuron. And successor of this neuron will be the neuron 4. If I could represent this fourth neuron, which is the neuron in output layer. There is only one neuron in the output layer, and I have 3 neurons in the hidden layer. And if I number all of the neurons in sequential order, this will be probably the fourth neuron. So 1, 2, 3 in hidden layer and neuron 4 in the output layer. So successor of neuron 1, X neuron will be only one neuron, that is neuron 4. Neuron 2 is not the successor of neuron 1. Neuron 3 is not the successor of 1 and 2. Okay. Only neuron 4 is successor of neuron 1, 2, and 3. All of these 3 neurons are connected to neuron 4. So neuron 4 is successor. If there are more than one successor, there are more than one neuron in output layer, definitely all those neurons will become successor of the neurons in hidden layer. Okay. So in this notation, to generalize, we imagine there are k neurons. There are k neurons. And all of those k neurons are the successor of neuron J. Right? Anyone has any doubt on any of these notations? If it is clear, then only I can move forward, because I have to explain some of the derivations which require you to understand. Okay, I think it is clear. So I move forward. Right? And one more thing, I have emailed the slide to all of you. So I think you must have this slide in your mail. Yes, Yes, I have not received any bounce back. So you can access your email and you can just download this slide so that you can always refer back to these notations when I'm deriving the backpropagation algorithm for you. Fine, great. So you all received it. Now you see what we have to do. We have to calculate delta wij. Why delta wij? Because I want to update old wij with delta wij, which is minus alpha del E upon del wj. You see this term, minus alpha del r upon del beta. This term is the gradient term, and this term is added or subtracted, or this term is used to update the old parameter value so that I could get new parameter value. So if I say that your wij will be updated with delta wij, where delta wij represents minus alpha del E upon del wij, then it won't be wrong to say that if I add delta wij to old delta wij, I will get new wij. Okay, so it will be updated. Now to calculate delta wij, I need to calculate minus alpha del E upon del wij. In this, alpha is known because we are setting it, the parameter initially 1 and then gradually decreases. What is unknown to us is delta E upon delta wij. That is unknown to us. And delta E is the error term. When we differentiate with respect to delta wij, then we'll get this gradient term. Now let us derive our equation so that we find out what is the expression of del E upon del wij. So we understood these notations, and then I move on to the derivation. I'm going to derive del E upon del wij because in that delta wij, this is the only thing which is unknown to us. So del E upon del wij is derived as using chain rules several times. I'll be using this chaining rule of calculus. So del E upon del wij could be represented as del E upon del zj and del zj upon del wij. We will remove this E representing the current error term, and we will just represent capital E as the neuron at which we are calculating the error. So you can see del zj upon del wij is actually del xj, because when what is zj? Zj is actually it's a weighted sum of all the inputs. So when I say that when you look at this z is weighted sum of all the inputs, right? When I differentiate this right hand side summation wij xj with respect to wij, what will I get? Only single xj, because remaining terms will become 0 because it's a partial differential equation. So I'm differentiating right hand side with wij. So wij is the only variable. Rest of the things become constant. When you differentiate a constant, it becomes 0. So this is the only variable, and the coefficient of this variable will be xj. All the summation terms will be gone because other than this single term, remaining will become constant. So what I'm left with is xij only. Xi input coming from I and reaching j, the current neuron. So del zj upon del wij leaves us with this term xij. So I have calculated this part, half part of this chain. Now I need del E upon del zj. So delta wij could be represented as minus alpha del E upon del zj and xij. To calculate del E upon del zj, we need to consider neuron as two different types of neuron. One neuron is hidden neuron and the other neuron is output neuron. There are only two types of neuron, hidden or output. There is no input neuron. So let us consider case 1, output neuron, because output neuron is simpler. So first we consider output neuron, and we will calculate del E upon del zj for output neuron. Okay, and remember this equation because I have to fill this value of del E upon del zj, and I will come back to this slide again. Now I'm moving. I'm trying to calculate del E upon del ZJ for an output neuron. Okay, neuron J is an output neuron. The current neuron that I'm considering is neuron J, and I assume it is an output neuron. So to calculate del E upon del ZG, again I use the chaining rule, del E upon del OJ into del OJ upon del ZJ. Now there are two parts, the pink part and the blue part. First we calculate the pink part, in which we differentiate the error term. Error term is my summation of yk minus ok square. Remember the error function that I had taken in this slide. This is the error function. This is the error. Okay, is this error right? This is the error. I think you are able to refer to it. Is my slide visible to everyone? Okay. So
Yes, sir.
there's a lag in the way I'm changing slides, and it is visible to you because I can see on my screen also there's a lag. But remember, this is the error term. Now I take this error term and I place it over here when I'm differentiating, when I'm trying to find out del E upon del OJ, the pink term. Del E upon del OJ, I replace the value of expression of E to make it del of del OJ with of 1 by 2 summation yk minus ok square, right? And when we differentiate this simple function, we get this output in which we have the differentiation is, you can see the third line in which 1 by 2 into 2 yj minus oj del yj minus oj. And now you should understand and appreciate the fact why we had multiplied this term with half, because I wanted to cancel this 2 that is coming from the square term. After differentiation, this 2 comes down, and this 2 and the half 2 in the denominator gets cancelled, so that I get rid of this 2 term. And then I have only this part yj minus oj, and the differentiation of yj minus oj with respect to oj gets me minus 1. So the overall answer of this differentiation is del E upon del oj equal to minus yj minus oj. So pink term is differentiated. Now we can differentiate the blue term, in which we have oj is actually the output of that neuron, and the output generates a neuron by feeding the legit to the activation function. Our activation function is sigmoid activation function. So I have not shown the differentiation of sigmoid activation function over here, but it is very easy to do. You can do it on your own, and you will understand that when you differentiate the sigmoid function is 1 upon 1 plus e to power minus z. Okay, and you have z over here. You need to differentiate it with respect to del zj. You will get this function oj into 1 minus oj, where oj is sigmoid of zj. It's very easy to come up converge to this expression. Now, when we have differentiated both pink term and the blue term, we have calculated del E upon del zj, which we started with. So we just need to multiply part this part and this part together to get the complete expression. So I move on to next slide, where del E upon del z is a multiplication of the pink part and the blue part, making it minus yj minus oj, oj 1 minus oj. And now the del wgij is actually a complete thing with minus alpha del E upon del z xij. So in this del E upon del z, I just need to put minus alpha and xij. Minus minus cancels out and it becomes plus alpha, and at the end you have xij. Now del E upon del z, the negative of del E upon del z, we will need further. That is why it is represented as delta j, and because I will be needing it further, so to simplify this right hand side part, I can just represent it using delta j. So you see, you observe delta wij is actually an expression of alpha delta j xij. So in the right hand side, what is unknown to you? Alpha is known to us, xij is known to us. If I talk about delta j, you go at the topmost line and you see this is delta j. So in this yj is known to us. OJ, the output generated by the jth neuron, is known to us. Again, OJ is known to us, and again OJ is known to us. Everything in the right hand side is known to us, and using all the known values, I can compute delta wij. All I need to do is add this term to the old value of wij, and I'll get a new wij. So in this way, my weight value, which is associated with the edge from ith neuron to jth neuron, is updated. Okay, and updated by using the error generated by this. So using the error, so I actually propagated that error backward. So if you look at this network, I have till now calculated the error, the weight updation of a neuron which was output neuron, because I considered two cases of neurons, output and hidden. So I have the easier one was output. So at this point, I have only computed the delta wij for output neuron. So imagine this is the output neuron for which we calculated. And what we have calculated at this point, we have just used the error produced by this neuron to calculate the updated value of one edge only. We have calculated the updated weight of one edge only. This is the edge which is starting from ith neuron and coming to jth neuron. This will have an old wij. Old wij is modified by delta wij, which is the updation factor, and then I get the updated value of wij only for one edge. One neuron, one edge only. If I have to get it for the second edge, I'll have to do it with, instead of ij, probably I'll have to do it with I plus 1j. So this edge is representing x I plus 1j. Okay, this edge is representing ij, this is I plus 1j, and this is I plus 2j, and this is our neuron j. So for every edge, we'll have to do the same thing again and again, so that every edge value is updated. The weight of every edge is updated like this. Fine. So delta wij is known to us. We can compute it. Now this is the factor for a neuron which is an output neuron. Now let us move on to the second case in which neuron is a hidden neuron. So if I imagine that the current neuron that I'm discussing is a hidden neuron, so the jth neuron is a hidden neuron. And I have to am I not audible? Okay. So audible. Okay. So del E upon del Zj, again, I have to compute this term. Now for the case in which jth neuron, the current neuron that I'm considering, is a hidden neuron. For a hidden neuron, you see in this network, output neuron is generating an output which is being compared with a single value. So the error an output neuron gets is one only all the time. Every output neuron will have one error fed back to it. Okay, it will not have more than one error. However, a hidden neuron will have more than one error fed back to it. Why? Because you see this neuron, suppose I take the second neuron of hidden layer. This neuron is in this diagram connected to only one output neuron. However, there could be more than one output neurons. So suppose there are 4 output neurons. Just imagine. So second hidden neuron is connected to 4 output neurons, and all 4 output neurons have their respective errors. So how many errors do we have? 4 errors coming from 4 output neurons, and all those 4 output neurons will pass those errors to this second hidden neuron. The second hidden neuron will have as many errors as many successors. Okay, and since output neuron does not have any successor, it will have only one error. That is why computing error term of output neuron was simpler than computing error term of hidden neuron. So we divided this into two parts. First we considered output, and now we consider the hidden neuron error. At this point, when I consider the hidden neuron, we see that del E upon del Z is not only with one error term, it is with respect to all the successors. So all these values need to be added together. Okay. To account for that, we have taken a summation of this error represented by K, which is running over all the successors of J. So we imagine that there are K successors of neuron J. Again, we apply the chain rule del E upon del Zk and del Zk upon del Zj. And when I consider del Zk, you understand that kth neuron error has already been computed. Okay, because we are coming backward. So we started from output neuron and then coming on to hidden neuron. And if I'm coming to hidden neuron, output layer errors have already been computed. So this K is actually that neuron for which we just calculated the error term. Okay. So del E upon del Zk into del Zk upon del Zj. Now del E upon del Zk. You remember that this is the term delta term that I started a notation with over here. Okay, and as I said, I'm coming back from output to the hidden layer. This J is the kth neuron that I'm writing over here. Okay? Because in this slide, the neuron under consideration, the jth neuron, is an output neuron, right? But in this slide, the neuron under consideration, which has now become J, is the neuron which is being computed after the output neuron has already been calculated. So once already been calculated, that neuron is part of the K successors. So del E upon del Zk is in fact del E upon del Z, which has already been computed. So you can take this term delta J as delta K, K being the successor neuron, and replace over here, which makes it minus delta K. Minus delta K means the error term for the successor neuron. And since I'm coming in the backward direction, all the successors have already been computed for their delta values. So you know all the delta values for all the K successors. So you know del E upon del Zk, that is minus delta K. Now I need to compute del Zk upon del Zj. Del Zk upon del Zj, I can again apply the chain rule del Zk upon del Oj and del Oj upon del Zj. One thing I would again like you all to understand over here. See this term. Okay, I hope from here to here it is clear. Okay. Okay. So Z delta K is clear. Now delta Zk upon del Oj, I need to compute this term. You see, what is Zk? What is Zk? Zk is again, Z is the legit. Legit is the weighted sum, right? Legit is the weighted sum only. It is not the output. Legit is the weighted sum. So weighted sum of kth neuron is the sum of all the J neurons input into J neuron weight values. Okay, like this notation, if you look at this notation, when I'm considering neuron J, just imagine there are three layers, layer I, layer J, and layer K. Okay, one after other. where I is the first layer, J is the second layer, and K is the third layer. So K is always successor of J. So when I'm coming back, I have already computed delta values of K neuron, and I'm now back onto G neuron. So if you look at this Zj, what you observe is, if I'm computing Z of jth layer neuron, it is represented as W from I to J and X from I to J. But if I compute Z of K, how will it change? Instead of I, it will become J, J will become K, and Xj will become K. Okay. So just increase every subscript by one term. So Zk is equal to Wjk into Xk. Okay. And like we computed over here, the delta Z upon delta Wij is Xij. Similarly, if we look at this term, when I compute it using delta Zk upon Oj, it is actually Wjk, right? Is it clear? This thing clear? Okay. So this Zk, Z of k is actually the weighted sum of weighted sum legit at the neuron k, and when you differentiate it with respect to Oj, you will get W of Jk, the weighted sum from gth neuron to the kth neuron. The gth neuron is the current neuron and k is the successor, one successor that I'm considering over here. So Wjk. Now this term del Oj upon Zj is still left. Now I move to the second last line. You see over here, del E upon del Zj is equal to summation over all the k successors, and I have minus delta k, Wjk, and del Oj upon del Zj, that has already been computed in the previous slide as the blue part. You see over here the blue part. The blue part said del Oj upon del Zj. The value of this part is already computed as Oj into 1 minus Oj, and then we just replace it over here, Oj del Oj upon del Zj as Oj into 1 minus Oj. All the terms are computed. We just simplify in the last line, indicating that I represent last line as delta J. We represented the previous one as delta J is equal to minus del E upon del Zj. So Oj into 1 minus Oj summation over all the k successors of this term delta k Wjk, where k delta k is the successor, k is the successor neuron, and delta k is the error term for all the successor neurons, and delta j for a hidden neuron is computed like this term minus del E upon del j, where del E upon del Zj is equal to Oj into 1 minus Oj summation over k successors delta k Wjk. So to combine both of these things, both of these output and hidden together, we look at this slide in which we have all the training examples. XY learning rate starts in this example as 0.1. We have Ni, Nh, and No, number of input, number of hidden, number of output neurons. A neural network with one input layer, one hidden layer, and one output layer with Ni, Nh, and No number of neurons respectively and all its weights. We initialize it. We create a feed forward network with these parameters. Initialize all weights to a small random number. Let's say it initializes, gives an example to initialize this minus 0.2 to 0.2. Then we repeat it until convergence. For each training example XY, we do a feed forward in which we propagate example X through the network and compute the output Oj for every neuron. Then we propagate backward. We propagate the errors backward, in which we have case 1 where the neuron is an output neuron. We calculate its error as the delta defined for output neuron. That's OK into 1 minus OK, YK minus OK. And for each hidden neuron, so the case in which the neuron is output neuron, delta K will be the first term. If it is a hidden neuron, the delta K term will be the second term. And we can calculate its error, and we update the weight of each and every edge associated with the neuron under consideration by using this formula, in which the new weight is an update over the old weight by adding it to the with the term alpha delta j x I j. This way I have updated one edge only. Okay, so you should remember this whole thing, this repeat until convergence says that you, for each example, training example, you have updated each, you have to update each weight. Every weight value needs to be updated. Once every weight value is updated, then only your model is said to be updated with respect to single example. This single example X having a label Y, for this example only, all the weights of the model is are updated, and then your model is updated. So we say that model has learned one example. Okay, now this is learning, and this is incremental learning. This is a very slow, gradual incremental learning. And how do you relate it to the term learning? What we are doing over here, we are just updating the weight value. How does updation of weight values make you learn? Updation of weight values make you learn when the whole model, the graph of whole model changes. Okay, and it is changing with respect to what? The gradient term, the gradient of error term. So every time I am trying to take my model in the direction which is given to us by the negative of gradient. And where exactly that negative of gradient pointing to? It is pointing towards a smaller error value. Okay, a smaller error value. So when you have applied gradient descent and updated all the weight values with respect to the updation given by negative gradient, you have taken your model towards a smaller error term. Okay, so after updation, if you rerun the model, if you apply feed forward on the same example, your error should decrease even by an infinitesimally small amount, but it should decrease, because that is the whole concept of gradient descent. Gradient descent is taking you towards a smaller error with respect to one parameter, with respect to one weight at a time, with respect to one parameter at a time, but finally it will take you towards a smaller value of error. And if error is getting smaller and smaller, what my model is doing? It is learning. My model is learning to produce smaller error. Fortunately, theoretically, at some point of time, that smaller value becomes zero. So if it is zero error, means what? The expected output is exactly same as the output I was getting. Okay, my uh, output that is being generated, the generated output is exactly same as the expected output. So my model has learned, right? This is how the model learns. And I would like to emphasize upon another fact over here, is that in this network, you look in this network, right? So on this slide where I have the diagram of this toy network, you see there are so many nodes and neurons. So input layer has 4 nodes, hidden layer has 3 neurons, output layer has 1 neuron, and similarly it can be scaled to a huge amount of nodes and big neural network. But things will be just like this. In this network, what is changing? Are the number of neurons changing in this network? No. Are the number of layers changing in this network? No. Are the connections from one neuron to other neuron changing in this network? No. Is the input
No, only the
changing?
only the
No, because input is what is given to you, the data that you observe, your natural observance. Okay. So what you observe is your input. That input is beyond your control. You don't control your input. So what do you control in this model? You only control the weight values associated with those edges. That is the only thing we control. And how are we controlling it? We are tweaking. We are slowly, gradually modifying those weight values so that the final output is becoming closer and closer to the expected output. Right? So this is a gradual, very small incremental updation of the weight values, which is taking you towards a better answer. Better answer means answer closer to the expected answer, means lesser amount of smaller amount of error. So when your network would have learned all the training examples perfectly, imagine a situation in which all the training examples are fed to this network, and this network has learned. We have updated weights so many times, infinite amount of times we have updated all the weights, such that finally, theoretically, for all input, it is giving zero error, all the input values. Okay, I'm not talking about testing at this point of time. I'm just talking about training. So all the input values that I have fed during training, for all the input values, it is giving zero error, or assume zero, very small, approximately zero error. At that point of time, from the very beginning, what has actually changed? What did change in this model? Anyone? Weights? Yes, it's only the weights which are changing. Nothing else is changing. Now, when weights are changing, so when you are learning, what you are learning? You are learning to have new weights. Okay, your weights are modifying themselves so that you are learning. And if I relate it to your human brain, after your model has been trained, after your model is mature, you save your model so that this model doesn't need training any longer. All it needs is to test. So we will test it, we'll utilize this model, we will put it somewhere, and no longer it's being trained. So what is your memory? Memory is actually the weight values that are kept over there. Okay, that constitute your memory, because those weight values have learned and they have imbibed in themselves the pattern, the input, the output expectations, all those things. Result of culmination of all those trainings is actually stored in those weight values. Okay, so only a set of matrices are stored when we store this model, and those matrices have these numeric values which we represent as weight values for respective edges. That's the only memory. So memory of a network is the set of weight values. That's all. So overall, the network is, of course, the architecture of network, the interconnections are definitely important. That is the physical thing. But the virtual thing are those weight values. These change, and then finally, when model is trained, model is complete, model is mature, all you are given is set of weight values which are most optimal. Most optimal means they have created a mathematical model which will be the best approximation or best decision boundary for your classification purpose, regression purpose, whatever be the purpose. Accordingly, we can change the term. It's regression or classification or decision boundary or the approximator, but ultimately that will be the most optimized mathematical function you were looking for. Okay, so is there any doubt in the way neural network learns? It looks simple at this point of time when we have a small toy example of neural network, and when I have discussed this single gradient descent with respect to a single neuron, either output neuron or a hidden neuron, but you can scale it up to millions of neurons and millions of edges, and then you can imagine the amount of computation that is required, the number of computations involved in this backpropagation algorithm, the feed forward and backpropagation algorithm. So if you imagine those many computations, then only you will be able to appreciate the fact that why parallel processing was required to efficiently run neural networks, and why even at this point of time, when you start with deep learning research, the first thing that comes to our mind is efficient computing resource. Okay, so efficient computing resource is the primary requirement that we need to have genuine deep learning research, because the number of computations are enormous, humongous. Even we will discuss some parameter sharing and the ways to reduce the parameter, but even then we are trying to make it larger, we are trying to make it deeper, and if we are trying to make it deeper and larger, we need more computing ability. So any question on the learning part? Because probably it will be tough for me to come back and then discuss the learning if
Please share a problem.
Yes, sir. I have one question, sir.
please.
During backpropagation, you are going to calculate the weights between the output and the hidden layer, and you have taken the two cases, sir. Two cases means when neuron J is an output neuron, when neuron J is the hidden neuron. What about
Yes,
the weight between the hidden layer and the inputs? Means we are not going to calculate the weight between the hidden layer and the input layers.
no.
Definitely.
Yes, sir. See, try to understand at this slide, right? It
Yes,
is
sir.
slide of case 2. When you look at this slide, what I'm updating is the weight of an input edge to this neuron. Okay,
Okay, sir.
weight of an input edge. I'm updating an input edge weight. An input is coming from where? It could come from a previous hidden layer, or it could come from an input layer itself.
But
Right?
we are moving from right to left, sir. We are moving from right
But
to
we are
left.
updating the input wedge. Okay. Yes. Good that I'm handling this question. See it. Look at this slide. Right?
Yes, sir.
In this slide, where is the consider the output weight first, output neuron first. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Where is the weight value that needs to be modified? These three weight values. Okay. These
Yes, sir.
three edges. These three edges are what? Input edges for this neuron, right?
Yes, sir.
For an output neuron, the yellow neuron, how many inputs are there? 3 input. Okay. And I'm updating the weight value of these 3 input edges one by one. I'm not updating the output edge weight, because output is calculating the error for me and it is giving me a feedback. I'm based on the basis of that feedback, I'm updating the weight associated with input edge for this neuron. And how many inputs are there? 3. Now, when these 3 edges are modified, means these 3 weights are modified, then only I come back to the hidden layer and I consider first hidden neuron. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So when I'm considering first hidden neuron, the updation of weight means updation of weight associated with the input to this neuron.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
So the
sir.
weight that is being updated is the weight associated with the input to this neuron. And fortunately, in this diagram, the input is coming from an input layer node,
Yes, sir.
right? Had there been more than one hidden layer, then this input would have come from previous hidden layer. That's all. That's the only difference. But even then, if I go one layer back, one layer back, one layer back, and ultimately I reach the first hidden layer, I will be updating the weight associated with the input neuron only. So on the basis of feedback received from my successors, I'm updating the weight associated with my predecessors. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
So imagine a hidden layer neuron. A hidden layer neuron has successors as well as predecessors, right? In this diagram, it has successor as output layer and predecessor as input layer. So I am taking feedback from successor and I'm updating the predecessor weight every time. Every neuron is doing the same thing. None of the neuron are updating their successor weight values. Every neuron is updating their predecessor weight value. So when the first, I mean the layer which is connected to input layer will be reached, that layer will update the edges or the weight values associated with predecessor, and then subsequently that predecessor weight updation will be the updation of weights as connected with inputs, right?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have one more question, sir. So why do we, sir, update beta naught, beta 1 simultaneously? Is there any logic behind this?
Yes, sir. It actually relates to this loop, this curve. You see, since we are taking a partial differential equation, I mean partial differentiation, we are differentiating it with respect to single parameter only. Okay. So in a way, we say that we move in one direction, right? Um,
Yes,
uh, Let me give you a physical example in which suppose you are standing at the top of a hill,
sir.
okay,
Yes, sir.
top of a hill, and you have to go down, you have to walk downward. Which direction you will move? You can move in any direction. I mean, if you look at, you are at the top of the hill and you want to go down, you can rotate 360-degree and go downward in any direction, right? Then how would we know where did you reach? So with this, what we say, you choose one angle, or if you look at this, this is two-dimensional view. If you look at three-dimensional view, in three-dimensional view, you cannot. If you look at all the parameter, you won't be able to decide where you will land. So you look at one direction at a time, move a bit in that direction, then take another direction, move a bit in that direction, then third direction, fourth direction, fifth direction, or this way you take all the 360-degree directions, and in every direction you take the step as told by your gradient descent formula, and finally you will be able to reach the position which is a culmination of all the gradients taken together. Okay. So this way, we have to do all of these updations simultaneously, because going down a hill is not only with respect to one parameter or one direction, because your data is a combination of d features and number of dimensions, d number of features. So all these features make your one observation one data point, and one data point is not isolated. That is why when you do a partial differentiation is actually deriving the slope in isolation, but your data point is not isolated. So to counter the fact that it is a derivation or a slope, identification of slope in one direction only, you update all the weights simultaneously. Okay.
Sir, in static class, Tiwari sir told that suppose I have a decision boundary. So what we can do, we can shift. Also, second way, we can also change the angle. If I'm going to change the angle, suppose 30 degree to 35 degree, so the beta naught will be same. So I'm not going to update the beta naught, only beta 1 is going to be changed. So what will happen in this case? Because we are not going to update both the parameters at a time. I'm going to change the angle of the decision boundary.
I'm not sure what he was talking about. Uh, Angle of decision boundary, I don't know, it could be what he was talking about while he was suggesting to change the angle of decision boundary. But here, when we have to find the decision boundary, the most optimum decision boundary, the thing is we are moving towards error minimization. And this term is not, it could not be seen in isolation with respect to one feature only. So we have to look with respect to all the parameters. So we have to update all the parameters simultaneously. That is what I can say. I don't know what Tiwari sir was actually referring to, so I can't relate to his statement and answer at this point of time. But
Okay,
definitely you can't update with respect to one feature and leave all the features separately, because I'm feeding one example X. X has D number of features. Suppose you train with respect to student. So student has several values, several data sets representing a student, roll number, CGPA per semester, CGPA of year, SGPA, and then grades with respect with of all the classes of all the subjects. So many parameters could be there. If you are trying to find out or guess what would be CGPA of that student in the next semester, then you can't look in isolation with respect to one subject only or one semester marks only. You have to look at all the things in collaboration. But partial differentiation gives you a slope in isolation. So you move in that direction, what the gradient descent is telling you, but consider all the gradients. And then at when you are done considering all the gradients for one example, then only you say that, okay, I have moved bit more towards minimum smaller error. Okay, you can't move in one dimension. That is not feasible. That is not the right method.
Sir, my one last question. Suppose I having beta 2, beta 3 also. So
Yep.
this graph is showing for the beta 1. So for beta 2, same process we have to repeat for the beta 2 and the beta 3 and so on.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
All the parameters need to be modified simultaneously and considered simultaneously. Beta values are nothing but they are changing the direction of your graph. Okay, these coefficients are nothing but they are the decider of how your graph looks like. X and Y values are known to you. They don't change. X and Y values, these are the beta values which change. So although you update beta naught, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, depending upon gradient, it might happen. I'm not claiming, I'm not accepting or denying that it will happen. It might change that your beta naught is not changing at all for several examples. But that is also due to the gradient descent. Gradient descent controls it. We don't control. We don't have control over what parameter will change, what parameter won't change. We just leave it on to gradient descent. Okay, if you feel that beta value should be changing, change it. Our job is to update as per the mathematical formula. Whether update actually changes the value or not, that is up to the algorithm.
So gradient descent will choose which beta 1, sir. Beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. Because suppose beta 1 is telling that go in that direction. Beta 2 is going to other direction. So what gradient descent is going to do? Suppose we having multiple.
It will. That is why I'm taking two-dimensional graph. Na? In this graph, you see this is two-dimensional graph. So with respect to this feature, it will move slightly. Then with respect to other feature, it will also. So it is only updating the value of beta 1 only. This gradient term is used to update value of beta 1, the graph that I'm showing over here. Okay.
At the end, sir, I need to reach to the global minima. So to reach the
Minimum. Yeah.
global minima, yes, sir. So that I'm asking you. So I have to reach, but beta 1 is telling another one direction, beta 2 is telling other direction, beta 3 is telling another direction. So finally, I have to reach to the minima. So
No. They are telling you a direction, but that direction is decided once all the beta values are updated. If you write down fx equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2. Okay, suppose I have three parameters and beta 1, beta naught, beta 1, x beta 2. So direction or the final position, your final position after one input updation is decided when beta naught, beta 1 and beta 2, all three are updated. When all three are updated, you have a new mathematical equation, fx equal to new beta naught new beta 1 x1 plus new beta 2 x2. So now this equation will tell you where you are after one input. Don't look at in isolation. Beta naught will tell you to update the value of beta naught. This will tell you gradient descent with respect to beta naught. Gradient descent with respect to beta 1 will tell you new value of beta 1. And then gradient descent with respect to beta 2 will tell you new value of beta 2. But when you have all the three beta values, all the three new beta values, then only you put it in your equation and try to find out where you are now. That is why I'm telling you. If you look at them in isolation, you will not reach the correct direction or current location. You have to update all three simultaneously, then put them in your equation and see how your function looks like. I have actually uh, an animation which I think I could share with you. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
If I may, I will just give you small demo. One second, one second. I'm also new to it, so that I might forget what button to press and where that button is. Okay, are you able to see this animation?
Yes, sir.
Right. So in this animation, you see this is the line, okay, and it has two parameter m and c. M is the slope, c is the intercept, and so you can call it beta naught, beta 1. When both beta 1 and beta naught are updated, then a new position or direction or intercept is decided for this line, and new line is drawn. So it's just mathematical function. You have two parameters, get new values of two parameter by applying gradient descent for both beta naught and beta 1 and draw a new line. That's all. In this, you see, this is the function I was talking of, and yes, this is the function actually I had forgotten to put over there. So this is the estimation with least square function that I was searching in that slide. So you see over here you have fx equal to beta naught plus summation beta j xj, and this is the linear regression model. In this model you calculate the error with respect to your expected and observed using yi minus fx I square, and you take average over it. You call it the risk cost function, risk function, or whatever you want to call, and then we try to minimize it. When we minimize, we update using gradient descent. We can again try to find out beta naught beta 1. And what is equation? Fx equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1, and there is only, this is a line y equal to mx plus c, which we all have studied in our coordinate geometry class. So y equal to mx plus c, this is a new line. Every time you update all parameters, you get a new mathematical function, and then you draw it. That's all. Direction or whatever is decided, or the new position, new direction, everything is decided once you have all the parameters computed. So once all parameter computed, you feed it in your equation and you get a new mathematical function, right? Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other question?
Sir, to add up on with this, like what he was asking about the decision boundary, maybe as I mean as an alternative method, maybe I suggest an alternative method could be we can simulate a model to a two-dimensional, sir, and maybe then the, as you suggested, the plot, the contour can be f of x equal to 0 in that case. And I think what you have shown now, I think in the visualization, if we can fix up the boundaries, and that comes more into machine learning, I think, to my limited knowledge, what I could understand.
Definitely it comes in machine learning, because when this is also the slide that I had for machine learning only, and in here I discuss all the how the machine learning models learn, and in here I explain why we need to have all parameters simultaneously, because you see you see in this example you will see there are d features, because every row corresponds to hello, am I audible?
Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Hello.
Yes. So I was saying that in this slide you see every row corresponds to one example, and this example has, you can see the first example, example 1 has x11 one feature, x12 the second feature, and similarly x1d representing d number of features. So every parameter is associated with one input value. So you cannot leave a parameter, because then you are leaving one feature of an input value. Okay. And you are not considering that feature. If that feature
That's
is
right, sir.
not important, then you can altogether drop the feature from your data set. But if that feature is important, then you will have to update the coefficient of that feature, because coefficient also signifies the importance of that feature, value. So this should be taken into account.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
So
Thank you,
I
sir.
stop it here, and then we will rejoin at 3 o'clock. Okay.
Sir, can you, sir, share, sir, these slides, sir, also, sir, because we are going to learn only deep learning. We will also refer your, sir, machine learning slides. If it is possible, please with us, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
So wait a second. We will rejoin at 3:30. Okay, it's already 2:15. Let's have our lunches and then we'll rejoin at 3:30. Right?
That's fine, sir. Okay, sir. Bye, sir.
Thanks a lot.